Vanessa, welcome to the Sober Side podcast.
Hey.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
So I want to let you do a quick little introduction on yourself. Tell us, we know your name's Vanessa, I just said it, but tell us how old you are, and what was your drug of choice, and how long have you been sober for?
All right. Well, I'm Vanessa. I'm an alcoholic. I'm 39. I really just love to drink. I will dabble in drugs when partying, but full blown. I've been sober since April 8th of 2023, which puts me at about 2.5 years.
Okay. And what are you doing now? Like, are you involved in treatment? Are you...
Well, I'm a regular member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I have a sponsor who took me through the 12 steps as outlined in the big book. I sponsor women and I go to meetings and make myself available in that way. And I have commitments just like the rest of the members, and I do what I can to be helpful.
Awesome. And just for like background, like what do you do for a living, and what's
Well, right now I work customer service for a manufacturer in Simi. It's kind of basic. It's not my forever job, but it's what I do to make money.
Right.
I'm actually hoping to get into animal care. I want to take care of dogs.
I love animals.
Yeah.
Dogs?
Dogs.
Oh, what's your favorite kind of dog?
To pick one.
Pick two if you want.
Australian Labradoodle and Bernese Mountain Dog. Those are my two favorites.
Okay. I don't know what they look like, but I'm sure they're
like
cute.
Very big dogs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's jump into your story. We were chatting a bit about your background. You're Mexican and British, right?
Yep.
Quite a combination. So before we get into your childhood and kind of like, that story, what is the first memory that you can think of? Like, what's the first ever memory that, you can think of?
The first memory that pops into my head is being in kindergarten, my dad coming in and playing the guitar for my class and feeling like the coolest kid in the world.
Heck yeah.
That's probably the very first memory.
That's a cool memory.
It is. It's awesome.
All right. So where did you grow up, and, how was that like early childhood?
Well, I grew up in Simi Valley. I'm a local yokel. I stayed there for all of 18 years. We pit stopped into Palmdale for a split second and came like rushing back. But my growing up, I have a very traditional household. My dad was a worship leader. My mom played on the worship team. My sister and I were on the worship team, and we went to church every Sunday and Thursday. We would do youth group events. That was just such a huge part of my life. It really took over my life.
Right on.
So high school, I was not a cool kid. I was very weird. I'm still very weird.
Really? You don't look weird. You look pretty cool to me.
No, I carry the spirit a little differently,
Yeah.
but I was very loud and boisterous and obnoxious. And so I didn't have many friends. So church was kind of like my retreat. So,
Okay. And what was it like growing up in Simi Valley? For those that don't know what Simi Valley is, can you paint us a picture of that environment?
I mean, when I was growing up in Simi Valley, it was a very small town. We didn't have all the houses and the apartment buildings that are there now. It was very much I could go play on the streets until it was dark, and then I'd go in and eat dinner. We had my grandma's house had like a giant, what is now a park, used to just be an open field. And we had what called Elephant Rock, and Elephant Rock was like the playground. And there were no houses back there, and we just run the field, and mostly with family, because, like I said, I didn't have many friends. We maybe play with some of the street kids because they liked my sister. She was the quiet one. So, but it's a very small town. You can walk down to the 7-Eleven, get yourself a Slurpee, and walk back home and not have to worry about anything. So I loved it. It was very nice.
So growing up in, like a small town and going to church, what was your first experience with kind of like a mood or mind altering substance that you can remember?
Well, I was in high school I had my very first beer. I was 16 years old. We had left school, and my friend Becca and my sister and I and another friend stopped over at her house. Her parents had just had a party, and they had these warm beers in a cooler. And I just wanted to be cool, so I was going to do what they were doing, and I went to go drink. It was horrible. It was the nastiest beer I'd ever drank in my whole life, and it was warm. It was disgusting. And that night, my dad had a softball game, and I'm like laying in the van with this headache that is just like pounding. And I told myself I wasn't going to do it again. And so, and I didn't until I turned 18. I didn't have my next drink until I graduated from high school and went into the military.
Oh, wow. So you went into the military?
Right out of high school, yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So what part of the military did you get into?
I was in the Air Force.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Flying some F-16s all the way to...
I wish. My depth perception was very good. I wanted to be intelligence, but that's just not the way that things worked out, and I ended up being in services. So what that means is we take care of the dining facilities, the fitness facilities, the lodging facilities, and if you deploy, you set up camp. So that is what the job I was given entailed of. So I got lucky to finish basic training tech school, and I got sent overseas for some time.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. Overseas where?
Korea. I was stationed in South Korea.
Okay, I was about to ask north or south, but obviously south.
We weren't allowed in the north, and we still aren't.
Unfortunately. So your father was military background as well. He was in the Air Force, right? Yeah. If I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So would you say that it was through your father that kind of sparked that inspiration to get into the Air Force? It was a mixture of that, and also like I wasn't a very good student. I didn't do very well in school, and so I didn't really want to do the college thing, but I wanted to have security, and I knew that was a door that I would be able to walk through. So, and quite honestly, I wanted to get out of Simi. Like I loved growing up here, but I wanted more. I'm to see the world.
Girl. Yeah.
So. Interesting. So how was it like being in the Air Force, being stationed in, or I don't know, station is the right word or not? Yeah. Being stationed in South Korea, and then, that second time drinking, how does that happen? Well, it's like this perpetual, like I've always been uncomfortable trying to fit in. And so, you get through basic training and you get through tech school, and that goes off smoothly. And then you get to this air base, and the world is your oyster. You go to your job, but then once you're done with your job, you leave base and you can go sightsee. And so I was stationed in Osan, Korea, which was very city-like. So you go into town, and they'd have these pop-up shops, and you can go shopping and you can barter. But they also have clubs, like loads of clubs and bars and all of that. And when you're 18, I was 18 going on 19. When you're that age, they don't card you to see if you're 21. You're in the military. In their mind, they're like, you deserve a drink. And so I started drinking, and I immediately went to liquor because I thought it tasted better. I didn't really care for beer. So I immediately went to liquor, and I had a blast. I thought I was living, the good life, and I finally felt pretty, and everything felt good, and I was getting flirted with, and I thought things were okay until they weren't okay. Interesting. Most people, I would say that beer tastes better than liquor, right? Yeah, no, I love whiskey. Like, it's great. I'm a whiskey. Yeah, very, like yeah. Whiskey. All right. So, and this city you said it was called Osan? Mm-hmm. And how far away was it from the capital, which is Seoul, right? I would say probably, oh man, it's been such a long time, but I feel like I remember taking a taxi there, and it might have been like 45 minutes to an hour. Okay. So it's pretty close by. It's pretty much the capital. Yeah. And I had gone to Seoul a number of times during like my time off. Like, cause my job was no different than any other job. I would have days off where I didn't have to go to work. And so I could travel to Seoul and sightsee. Interesting. And, how did you how did you like the Korean culture?
The Korean culture was great. The people, well, the women were great. The men didn't pay no attention to you, and that was, just because of their culture. But they were so great. I mean, when I would go to work, we worked with a bunch of what do you call them? They worked for us. We had a bunch of Koreans who worked for us, and so the ladies would say, "Call me Oni," which is sister in Korean, and I would call them Oni, and they would make us food, and we would all eat together, and the culture was wonderful. They were very welcoming.
Awesome.
I loved it there.
I love Korean barbecue, so I'd probably have a blast there. Yeah. Okay, so and the bars and the clubs and starting to drink whiskey. How did this develop into an everyday thing?
Well, it didn't even develop. It literally just became an everyday thing.
Wow, like instantaneous.
Yeah, I'm one of those. As soon as I started, I just kept going. So every night I would get off of work, I would go out, I'd party, and do what I do, and then I'd go back to my room and I'd clean up, I'd take a shower, I'd go to bed, and I'd wake up, go to work, and do it all the next day.
Okay, so it wasn't inhibiting your work until
my work was not very hard because we had contractors is the word. Because we had the Korean contractors, my job literally was I was a glorified babysitter. I would go in and I'd walk around making sure everybody was doing their job. Like that was
right on.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fun job, honestly.
No, it was horrible.
Get back to work.
It was, I mean, it had its moments, I was smoking 2 packs a day. Because I could smoke a pack while I was at work and another pack while I was out partying. Like it was boring.
Wow. And from what I know, like smoking cigarettes is pretty accepted, right? In the Korean culture.
Oh yeah. They're all a bunch of smokers.
Yeah.
Especially the men. They love to smoke. And the women, they smoke their Virginia Slims.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So at what point did you find this to become a problem?
Well, so I only spent 10 months in the Air Force as a result of my drinking. So I continued drinking, thinking that I was having a great time. But as we know, like a lot of times we drink to cover up the discomfort that we're feeling. And so I had managed in the 6 months that I was stationed there to try and take my own life in a blackout twice. And so the second time that it happened, I found myself in a mental institution in Seoul, Korea at an army base. And I was given 2 options. I could either stay in and I was given a list of things that I was going to be required to do, like go to AA, or I could get a medical discharge. And I chose to get discharged. I had decided that the military was the problem and not me. And I got medically discharged and got out, came to California to finish my discharge, and I moved up to Montana.
Interesting. So the blackout that you're talking about is like blacking out after drinking?
Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say was the reason that, you wanted to take your own life?
I could honestly say during that time, I really didn't like myself. I put a lot of value into what other people thought of me. And so because I felt as though people were not going to like me unless I was a certain way, I just was never going to like myself. And I was really at the time, I was very tired of trying to appease everybody. And I was doing things that are not becoming of a woman. There are things that women do when we drink. And so, I didn't have any value. And because of that, I was just like, this life kind of sucks. And I was just done. I was just done doing life.
Yeah, it's sad to hear that. And many people go through that themselves. Yeah. So you come back to California and you said you spent some time here and then you moved to Montana. What was you came back home, I'm assuming? Yeah. So whenever you go into the Air Force and you're getting discharged, you have to go to your home of origin. For me, that was California, to finish out processing. So I was maybe here for a couple of weeks finishing that up, and I jet off to Montana, which is where my biological mom lived. Okay. So did you see drinking as a problem at this point, or you would say that it was the military that was the problem, like you mentioned? So you go to Montana, and tell us what happens next.
Well, so I get to Montana, and I'm moving in with my biological mom, who doesn't think that I have an alcohol problem. And she was like, I really don't think you're that bad. And I was just like, yeah, no, I just like to party. And so she was like, well, we'll have a welcome home party for you when you get back. And so I got over there, and she did. But she had all of these like bottles like lined up, like she threw a party. And I mean, I just continued to drink excessively, hopping from relationship to relationship. And I was out there for maybe a year and a half. Before, and I was never really a career person. After I got out of the military, I never wanted a career. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get this menial job. I was working at a gas station and, had this boyfriend, and I thought that, and he was Air Force. I was like, okay, well, I can marry military and that'll still get me what I want. But a lot of times when you're drinking and you're blinded by things, right? You don't always see what you're supposed to see. So it ended up being a really abusive relationship, and that had to come to an end because I was probably going to die if I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the drinking was every day ever since, landing in
At
Korea?
that point, it wasn't so much every day. It was more like just weekends only. I thought to myself, okay, I could cool it, because the gas station job I wasn't going to be able to get away with drinking on the job. That shit was tough. So,
wow. Tougher than being in the Air Force?
Surprisingly, yes. Because I worked overnights.
Yeah.
So I would go in overnight, and I would be responsible for cleaning and restocking, and I wasn't just sitting on my ass telling people what to do anymore. And I'm not a functional drinker. I'm just not. Like, I get sloppy. It's not cute. So I would stay sober through the week and drink on my days off. But I always drank to blackout. It was never
just a drink.
Yeah. And I never wanted it to be that. I wanted to black out.
Got it. And your ex-boyfriend that was in the military, was he drinking as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And so this relationship eventually comes to an end. What pushes you to end the relationship?
Well, I was living with him, and he had me down and was choking me out, and I managed to get away and run into our room and lock the door. I called up a friend of mine and told him that he needed to come get me. And so he did. He came, he got me, I grabbed my stuff, I left, and I moved in with a friend of mine for a few months before my cousin, who lived out here in California, offered to fly me back home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that. I can't imagine anyone putting hands on you. You're so nice, it's so fun. Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear that. And so you come back to California.
Yeah. And
what was it to get away from that environment, or was it to start something new?
Well, my cousin had a stipulation when she offered me the plane ticket to come home. So as we had talked about earlier, music is a very big part of my life. It's something that I always put on the back burner, and I never really thought it was good enough. So my cousin said, I'm going to buy you a plane ticket to come back. She goes, but I have the paperwork, and you're going to try out for American Idol. At the time, I was 20 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, she wanted me to try out for American Idol.
Sing, right?
Yeah. And so I said, fine, whatever, because I wanted to come home. I wanted to get away from everybody. And so I did that. Obviously, you can see it was a huge success.
So you actually went on to stage and
No. So what people don't know is that there's the beginning stages before you get in front of the main judges. And so I did the beginning stages, and I didn't make it through to the next cut. So, and these things have...
They're lost, man.
Right? I'm amazing, don't you know? But yeah, so that never came of anything. But at that point, I had decided that I needed to clean up my life. And I was 20, and I think I was 19 going on 20. So all of this stuff happened in such a short period of time, right? So I was 19 going on to 20, and so I found myself a job And that job led to me having like 3 jobs, and I had a lot of debt. So I had a family friend helping me out, getting out of debt, just cleaning my stuff up. At this point, I was not drinking at all. I didn't have anybody to supply me with the drinks. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to be sober. And so I go through this process of cleaning my life up and getting my stuff together. I get this really great job opportunity working for a card processing company, and I think this is it. I found a boyfriend that I just thought was going to be it for me. He was best friends with my sister and her husband, and we all did stuff together. And I turned 21, and I still didn't need to drink, and everything was fine. And it really hadn't even crossed my mind at that point, because I was just doing life with them, you know. And what it is it's just a transfer of powers. You know, I just switched my higher power from drinking to this boyfriend and this life, right? And when things didn't work out with the boyfriend, and that caused my relationship with my sister and her husband to kind of we became distant. Life got really uncomfortable again, so I turned to the one thing that I knew, and I was now legal to drink.
Wow. So during this time that you're not drinking, and can you tell us like how long that was? It
was about a 2-year period.
Okay. So during this time, are you accepting the fact that alcohol has this particular...
No. At that point, I really just thought that I needed to manage and control my life. And I was like, obviously I can't manage and control and drink at the same time, so I need to clean my stuff up, and then maybe I can start fresh.
So no like occasional drinking, like going out, like what if you were in that environment where like somebody was drinking?
Well, I wasn't old enough to drink at that time. And by the time I turned 21, I think it was maybe a few months later where my relationship with that gentleman had ended. So
and is he still best friends with your sister's husband?
They're still friends, yeah. I mean, we've seen each other since then. He was in my sister and her husband's wedding. So, you know, we can be in the same room.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's very mature. And so the relationship ends, the drinking begins.
Yeah.
And where does that road take you? You have this good job now, so,
yeah.
You know.
I was making good money. During this time, I never had a driver's license or a car. So I always traveled via bus, by foot, or I would have a ride somewhere. And so I had this really great job. I was renting a room from a friend and his dad. And so at this point, I was just like, okay, well, I could just drink on weekends. And I did. I only drank on weekends. But
every weekend? Or
yes.
is it some weekends?
No, every weekend. But I managed pretty okay.
And what was, sorry to cut you off, and what was the environment that you were in when you were drinking on the weekends?
So I had my watering hole. It was called Judge Roy Beans in Simi Valley.
So this is like a bar?
Yeah.
Okay.
It actually just recently closed. It just went out of business.
Oh, wow.
But I used to love going there. I was friends with the bartender. They had karaoke there on the weekends, which is what attracted me to the environment. I'm big on karaoke. I still do karaoke to this day. So I would go, and I made a slew of friends, well, fair weather friends, but friends nonetheless. And we would party on the weekends, and like we would party at the bar, and then we go to so-and-so's house, and it was always a transfer. And that was the scene for me. And that lasted for just under a year before life fell apart again.
And during this time that you're, drinking, is it to black out, or was there no blacking out?
Sometimes I would black out and sometimes I wouldn't. It just depended on the friends that I was with, because some friends would cut me off, and those are your real friends, right? So yeah, some friends would cut me off and then I wouldn't, and I would just go home and I'd pass out. It also was dependent upon the men I was around. Because if I was casually seeing somebody, I wouldn't want to black out if the end goal was to get laid. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to get laid blacking out. So that was a big part of the cycle as well. So it really was dependent upon who I was with.
Gotcha. And so you said, this ends. And why did it end the way that it did?
Well, so the company that I worked for, we would have anniversary parties and holiday parties to celebrate, and those parties typically had open bars. And so one year I go to an anniversary party at Sagebrush Cantina, and I have a bit too much to drink. I blacked out and then passed out in a friend's car who didn't know where I lived, so I ended up sleeping in his car. And then he takes us to work the next day, and I'm pretty sure I was still loaded when I got to work that next day, and I said something that I shouldn't have said, and I lost my job.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did that affect you?
I mean, it went downhill really fast. I had to move out of my friend's house. I had to move back in with my parents because I no longer could afford to pay the rent. My parents let me stay there for a couple of months, but during those couple of months that I was there, I wasn't looking for another job. I was just going to the bar all the time, and I didn't have to worry about paying for drinks because there were plenty of men that were going to buy them for me. So I would show up there anyways, and I did that for a little while before my parents were just like, we can't watch you do this. And they said, you can choose to leave, or we can send you back to Montana with your mom. And so that's what I did. I went back to Montana with my mom. Like, I feel like I knew that it wasn't going to be the solution, but it was like I didn't want to be homeless, you know? So I was like, well, I'll just go to my mom where she'll just let me do what I need to do.
Okay. So then you go back to Montana to your mom's, and how does that progress?
Well, that progressed actually pretty quickly. So I get there, and they already have a job lined up for me. I literally just have to go in for the interview, meet some people, and then I have a job.
What kind of job was it?
It was a bus. I was just bussing tables. And I hated it. So I did that
like being a waitress?
Well, I wasn't even a waitress. Like, I literally just cleaned up after the waitress.
Okay.
But I hated it. So I think I lasted there for a couple of months before I went back to the gas station that I used to work at. And they were quick to offer me my job back because I was good at my job. That's the one thing that I can attribute to myself, is that when I do a job, I do it to the fullest. I'm a good employee. And I've managed to maintain that, other than, losing that one job. So I picked up that, and then at this point, this is my first time living in Montana where I'm old enough to drink. And so I started going to a place there called the Loading Zone. And it was one part of a 3-part bar. And they had karaoke at the Loading Zone side. And I knew the karaoke DJ from back in the day when I used to party at the VFW. And so that picked up really quick. I just always drank. And at that point, it wasn't necessarily every day. It was just kind of like on my days off again. But again, it was always to get super, super wasted or blackout. I met a couple weeks into it. I met my ex-husband at the time. He was very attractive, and I saw his friend from across the room. I went over to his friend, and his friend was like, I'm saving myself for marriage, but you should go talk to that guy. And I looked over here and I was like, oh, he's good. So I walked over to him, and we almost immediately started dating, and he became what I called my safety net.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how does this relationship blossom?
Well, so we had a really nice night that night. He gets me home safe, and our very first date was at Subway, and we go on Subway, and it was slow, probably slow for me, but fast for him. Because we started dating, and we were taking it easy, and then my mom, we lost the home that we were living in. She didn't pay rent, and we got evicted. So I found myself homeless nonetheless. And he was also Air Force, which is something that I sought. And so I couldn't stay with him because he was living in the dorms on base. So he would sometimes sneak me in and let me sleep there, but I would have to fend for myself and find myself different places to sleep. And I did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done as a result of that. But once he was able to move off base, we immediately moved in together. So we dated for a year, and we continued, like, he partied with me. But he allowed me to feel normal in our environment, so that I didn't feel like I had to go over the top every single time. But if one of us was going to go over the top, it was going to be me. But once we got married, we got married a year after we started dating. And
what age is this at?
I was 23 going into 24.
Okay.
Because it was only a couple months later I found myself pregnant with our first kid. And I had her at 25. So I think his expectation was that like family life would slow me down. And it did at times. But it was like I was always constantly, like when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was like waiting for myself to be done being pregnant. Right. And then once she was born, she had some complications. And I was waiting for the complications to pass. And it was always like, when is? And so I just always anticipated when I was going to be able to get that next drink. And it never occurred to me that this was a problem. Like I felt like this was normal. People thought like this. People wanted to drink. Why wouldn't you not? So like it never occurred to me that this was a problem, a way of thinking. And I was surrounded by people who drank like me. So I didn't see an issue with it.
Got it. And you would say the family life kind of slowed it down a bit, but when did it start picking back up?
Well, once I found myself pregnant with my daughter and we started having those complications, I stopped working. So I would have bouts of like over drinking throughout our marriage and taking it too far. A few years after my daughter was born, I had my son, and he was deploying, and I moved to Alabama to go live with my in-laws. And that kind of gave me the opportunity to drink to excess safely, because in Alabama, the culture is very different. We lived out in the country. And by this point, I am drinking beer because it's just culturally what we do. And so that lifestyle just got really comfortable. But then when he got back from deployment and we came back to California, we were stationed here in California, I started to get really uncomfortable because I didn't have any friends and I was just stuck in a house with kids and him. And I would drink at the house, and I would wait until the kids were gone to bed, but I would drink at the house and I would always pass out. And so I had decided one night that I was going to go out and get myself some friends. And so I went down into town and I found this watering hole called Wicked Shamrock in Lompoc. And I made some friends there, and we became fast friends. And I started to realize that the life I was living was no longer the life that I wanted to have. And I think a few months into that, I had decided that I no longer wanted to be married to my husband. And I was like, I'm done with this. This is boring. You're boring. When in fact, it was just me, just needing, like I needed to be able to drink freely. And I knew that he was going to eventually get sick of it. He was not going to put up with it. He
sounds like a very loving and caring guy, though. Am I?
Oh, he's the greatest. I have nothing but good things to say about him. I don't even understand. Like, I didn't deserve him. I don't know what right I did by God to get a good, loving, caring husband and father to my children. My children currently live with him. They're being raised by him and his new wife. And they're doing well, and I'm so happy for them. But I was sick in the head. Like I had all of these perceptions of like what I thought he needed to be doing and what he should be doing and why can't he do this for me? And, that selfish, self-centered thinking of like, I'm not getting enough of what I want, So when I asked him for the divorce, like he was devastated. Like he was just like, I don't want this. And I was like, well, I'm sick of you. And we attempted to go to therapy, and I even remember the therapist asking us, well, do you even want to fix this? I was like, not really. He's like, this isn't going to work if she doesn't want to do it. You know what I mean? And so I was just done, and I exited. So I started sleeping on the couch and whatnot because we still had these 2 kids and we didn't really know what we were doing at that point. But he was getting out of the military and he was going to be forced to go back home to Alabama because he couldn't afford to stay here on his own. And I was moving back to Simi, and the kids came to live with me during that time. And by that point, it was 2016. I had gotten my first DUI when I was 30 years old. And I was forced to go to AA meetings. And I was told to go to an AA meeting. I went there in Lompoc and I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I was like, this is stupid. I'm not going back. And so I didn't go back. But then when I went to court, the judge threatened to put me in jail if I didn't go to more AA meetings. So I said, I'm moving to Simi Valley. Can I do this there? So I moved to Simi Valley and I started going to a meeting that was down the street from my house. And I managed to, I guess, make some friends, which gave me the desire to stay. And so I kept going to meetings, and about a year and a half into, a little less than a year and a half, I started to get real uncomfortable, and life started to get really hard, and my children were starting to suffer as a result of it because my children have autism, and they require some help, and I just couldn't provide them the help that they needed. I couldn't be a present mom. And I think that's why the second half of the first step is so important, the unmanageability, because even without drinking, I still don't know how to manage my life. And I keep trying to manage it and I can't do it. And that leads me back to the drink every single time. So I asked my ex-husband for help because I knew that he would, because he loves his children. And I said, I need you to take the kids. And so he did. And so the kids moved out there to Alabama. At this point, his now wife is his girlfriend, and they were all going to live together, and we all met up and we had a plan, and I'm grateful that I get to have such a good dad for my kids.
Yeah.
But that gave me a sense of freedom that I knew was eventually going to lead back to a drink if I didn't get to work, and try to actually be sober. So I continued to go to meetings for a while, and I stayed sober for about 6 years. Problem is that I didn't do the steps. I didn't want to do the steps. I didn't think I needed to. I figured if I had a God, and I prayed to the God, and I went to meetings, and I did what everybody else was doing, that I would stay sober, and that's just not the case. Because my problem is not the drinking, it's the way that my brain thinks. It's the need to feel comfortable in my own skin. And without a solution, I'm always going to go back to a drink. So in 2023, I relapsed and I went out. But I was very lucky. I only went out for one night. And it was a really bad night. And I was very suicidal at that point. I was like, my kids are better off without me. Everybody's better off without me. I'm sick of doing life. And I was serious at that point. Like, I was ready. I was done. And I found myself at a meeting the next day. And I had an honest conversation with my sponsor, like an authentically honest conversation with my sponsor. And I started doing the steps this time.
And what held you back from actually completing that idea that you had?
Well, I think it was first off, I had to really put the people who loved me first. And I remember telling my sponsor this. I remember saying to her, I was like, I'm going to do the steps because you guys say that it works. I was like, but if I do the steps and it doesn't work and I still feel crazy, I'm going to kill myself because I just can't keep doing life like this. And so I told her that I would give it 100%, and I did. And I'm very grateful, and I'm very lucky that I was willing to do it and that it worked. I told myself I could give myself one more year.
And what would you say was the main reason that, you wanted to change? Was it because of the people who cared about you, or was there a part of you that wanted to, be better?
I think it was a little bit of both. In the beginning, it really had to be more about the people who wanted me to live It really had to be. But there comes a time where you have to really change the focus to yourself. So for a long time, it was my children, it was my parents, it was the people in the meetings who stood behind me. I'm so blessed. I have so many friendships and people who love me and care about me and vice versa. That like, what would that do to them? And I really had to live with that for a little bit of time until I cared enough about myself to say, okay, I want to be different. And so I continue, I have to continue to do that. Right. It doesn't happen overnight. I'm in a much better place today than I ever was 2.5 years ago, but I know that there's still so much that needs to be done, but I don't want to die today. My life is good today. My perception has changed. The way I view my life has changed. Thank God. So I couldn't imagine my life without Alcoholics Anonymous.
Wow. Well, that was, there's a lot there to uncover. But I want to get into sharing some wisdom, right? So what would you say was the main difference between now and the 6 years that you were going to meetings and maintaining sobriety?
Well, the journey through that I get to take through the steps, it's not just about doing the steps, right? Like you can check mark them off, but when you actually take a look at them and what they're providing you, right? I get to look at myself in the mirror and say, these are the things that are cropping up. So I did a thorough inventory, right? I had a sponsor go over it with me, and then I take a look at these character defects, right? And so for me, it's like if I have the desire to change, I need to know what needs to change. My biggest deal a lot of times is my selfishness. It's my self-centeredness, and I'll tell you quite honestly, the biggest one that I've been having to work on lately is self-pity. It gets really uncomfortable when you think, oh, I want more, and then and you don't get it, and then you look around and you're just like, why can't I just have? But it's like I need to be grateful for, right? But there's no way for me to know what needs to be worked on and what needs to be presented to the God of my understanding, unless I'm aware of it. So that's like the key difference. Like I had done the sponsor dance all through the 6 years of changing sponsors and switching. And I was just making excuses for not really wanting to take that real hard look at myself. Can't change what you don't know needs to be changed. Yeah.
And during this process, did you ever go to treatment? I didn't hear anything like detox or any kind of like treatment center like that.
I won't say that it wasn't necessary, but I had an opportunity. My parents, so long as I wasn't going to drink, would allow me to stay at their home, and so I'm very fortunate in that I get to live with my parents and help them in their home, but also be provided a safe place to stay. This last relapse, I really didn't have to worry about getting the jitters. I didn't have a lot of those, a lot of the detoxing that a lot of people go through.
The physical effect.
Mm-hmm. Mine is more of an attitude adjustment. I can be quite the asshole sometimes.
Yeah, so, we all can be.
Right.
And what would you say now that you've been in the program? I would say like 8.5 years almost, being familiar with the AA structure and what it entails. What would you say is the biggest issue that newcomers are facing?
Well, I would say if you're a newcomer and you're questioning whether or not you're an alcoholic, that can be the first speed bump to get over. It's like if you're not absolutely certain that you're an alcoholic and that you need a solution for it, you're probably not going to be willing to do the steps that are required. I would say the other part of it might be presentation, right? Because we attract, we don't promote. So as an alcoholic who has recovered and done the steps, I think it's important that I go into a meeting with the mindset of I'm here to provide a solution and to be helpful. And sometimes maybe they don't see people like that. Maybe they'll walk into a meeting and nobody says hello. As in my nature, it is in my nature to just immediately be like, hey, how's it going? Like that's just who I am, but not everybody is built that way.
Right.
So, you walk into the wrong meeting and nobody says hello to you and you're just like, well, this was a dud. And you just walk out and you leave and you decide not to come back. I would say try a different meeting. Mm-hmm. If you know that you're an alcoholic, try a different meeting.
Right.
And I don't want to hate to say it, but like I'm a big book thumper. Like I love the big book, and that's where the solution is. Get yourself a big book and read it. I have a friend who likes to say, don't let somebody else read the big book for you.
Right.
So that book saved my life.
And how would you define what being an alcoholic is?
Oh. Well, I mean, what being an alcoholic is. I mean, the big book says it. Once I start drinking, I can't stop. And the obsession of the mind, right? Like even when I'm stopped, I'm always thinking about it. So it's the two combining. It's the physical allergy and the mental obsession. It's both of them, right? So when I'm not drinking, I'm thinking about drinking. And when I am drinking, I'm drinking to get wasted. So the steps have provided me a way to not obsess about it, right? You remove the obsession and then you don't have to drink. So then the allergy never kicks in. So the allergy only kicks in once you have that first drink. Right. You have to solve the mental obsession. And that comes from a change in thinking. And that can only come it only comes from the 12 steps, but I will say that the 12 steps are meant to lead you to a God of your understanding. I don't have a religious God, but I have a God that I believe in, and I pray to her and I talk to her on a regular basis. Because without her I am nothing.
Love that. Yeah, I would say it's a huge part about, coming to recovery or getting that process started. But I want to ask you more questions about AA. And, my goal here to ask these questions is to inspire people to actually go to NA or AA. What recommendation would you give to somebody who hasn't been to a meeting before to actually maybe go to one?
Well, I would say don't be afraid to identify, because when you identify, it gives us an opportunity to know who you are, right? If you're questioning about whether or not to go to a meeting, or if you're afraid to go to a meeting, we're just normal people. Like, I go to meetings with homeless people, and I also go to meetings with people who have like top-notch professions. Like, we're just people, and we're all the same. Like, we're just there to get sober, and we have a solution. So if you're afraid to come to a meeting, I mean, sit in the corner, but then raise your hand, and somebody nice will come and talk to you. I've never gone into a meeting where I have felt unwelcomed. It might have been a low number of people at the meeting, but I've never gone and not felt welcomed, so long as I was willing to identify.
Right. And why would you say that being on the sober side of life is better than not being on the sober side?
Well, because for me to drink is to die. So if I'm not on the sober side of life, it leads to death for me. And to be alive is the greatest gift, right? To have the desire to be alive is a gift. So I'm grateful that I get to be sober, and it's not always easy. my sober journey has had its own ups and downs. I've lost people I love. I've gone from having a car that functions to having a car that's driving me crazy, and things have had its ups and downs. But at the end of the day, through all of that, I never once thought about picking up a drink, and that is a miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that it doesn't even cross my mind anymore.
Wow. So it's safe to say that you don't battle with any kind of triggers or any kind of like thoughts that might say, hey, maybe, you know, even though you might know and be easily
I'm still, at the end of the
suppress it.
day, I'm still an alcoholic. So to say that I'm never going to think of a drink again would be unrealistic. And even to use the term triggers, I think as an alcoholic, like I could be triggered by a broken shoelace. Like anything could be a trigger if I allow it to be. Right. The solution itself has provided me a door that I don't have to think about drinking. I'm not going to say that it's never crossed my mind. My obsession wasn't lifted for me for my first 90 days of being sober. I wanted to drink every day for 90 days and made the decision to keep doing what my sponsor told me to do and stay sober. And I prayed to my God, and my God kept me sober. So, you know, I'm not going to say that I'll never think about drinking again because I'm an alcoholic. But I really hope that so long as I continue to do what I'm doing, I don't ever have to actually pick up that drink again.
Love that. And say you were to say today was the last day on Earth.
Okay.
How would you want the people around you to remember you as?
I would want them to remember me as the loving, kind, generous, weird, fun, bubbly person that I am. Like it probably doesn't show because I'm just sitting on a couch, but I tell you, like I'm the girl with the Bluetooth and the earbuds in my ears while I'm dancing down the grocery store looking for mac and cheese box. Like that's, you know, I think life is meant to be enjoyed. The big book says it. We're not a glum lot. Like it's meant to be enjoyed. I have a lot of fun. I go to karaoke every Friday nights. I play softball every Wednesday night. I sing in a rock band. Like life is good.
Awesome.
You know, why would I want to do anything different?
Amazing. And being at the brink of it almost being your last day, what would you say is the meaning of life? What is the purpose that we're here?
Service. I am here to be helpful to the next person, and it doesn't have to be an alcoholic. I can be of service to anybody. You know, I go to work and I say, how can I help my employers today? I go to a meeting, how can I help an alcoholic today? I get home, how can I help my parents today? How can I help my kids today? You know what I mean? I think the whole purpose of life is meant to, and quite honestly, like anybody who's ever actually practiced being of service will tell you that there is so much gratitude and fulfillment from doing that. Some of my softball teammates put together a meetup where we got to go help put meals together for homeless people and people who are less fortunate. You know what I mean? Like, and we leave there and we stop and get food on the way home and we're kicking it and in and out and having a great time. Like the satisfaction that you get from being helpful to those around you, there ain't anything like it. The self-esteem that you get from it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
You know? You don't have to be an alcoholic to know that.
Love that. And lastly, say one of the viewers was feeling like how you felt in the past at that point of breaking where they want to take their own life. What would you tell that person to change their mind?
Oof. I would tell them that it gets better. I would tell them to pray to their God. And I would ask for them to reach out the hand because we're here to help. I hope to God I never have to feel that way again. And I've seen women and I've seen men walk into the rooms feeling like that. And I pray that they get to stay. There is help, and you don't have to feel that way anymore.
Love that.
Sorry.
Thank you, Vanessa. Sorry about the last question.
No, it's good. It's just I remember I remember that feeling so vividly. I don't ever want to forget what that felt like, because that's why I get to stay.
Yeah. Gets better.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and being a light and an inspiration to all the people that are around you.
Thank you.
You're the best.
Appreciate you.